Alright, so today what I'll be sharing on is on mirroring. Now, mirroring is one of the first thing that I covered when I started to think in terms of creating content for psychology, body language, and influence, right? And mirroring with sense of importance encompasses a huge portion of the charisma process. And the way that I see it is that if we think in terms of psychology and we think in terms of, okay, what can I learn in order for me to be seen as more charming, likable, be it you want to have a better relationship with your co-workers, you want to have better chances of attracting the person that you desire, or in just general, you just want to be more likable, be more respected, then you can say that there are a lot of different things in psychology that you can learn. You can learn the difference between thinking and feelings. You can learn the difference of how to utilize power efficiently. You can learn about influence. You can learn about personality theories, how to predict how somebody is going to behave. You can even learn body language. So there's a lot of things to learn. And some of these things tends to be more complicated and time consuming when it comes to trying to one thing grasp them and actually putting them into practice. Now, the way that I see it, right, there is, at least from what I observe about learning about all the things that I listed upon, the ones that have the most efficiency, I would say, is mirroring and sense of importance. To the point that I would say that if you start applying mirroring, the basic level of mirroring, so we're not even talking about advanced mirroring where I'm mirroring your values or I'm even mirroring your language, I'm mirroring anything that I can, body language, right? I'm only talking about the bare minimum of mirroring, which is mirroring of words, and applying the sense of importance. To me, that encompasses 70 to 80% of the charisma process. Then, of course, the additional 20 to 30% is when it comes to mastering a skill set. So that is when your personality theory will come in, your body language will come in. But personality and body language would take you significantly longer to actually study, okay, this type is this type is this type is this, and you have to start to observe, okay, what is this person's type, and then what is the best way to deal with them. Compared to mirroring and sense of importance, you just apply something that is very simple. The technique works for itself. Compared to when body language and personality theory, it tends to be more knowledge driven. So, of course, I won't be able to cover both mirroring and sense of importance in one video, but at the very least, what I can cover is the basic foundation of the principles that these two work upon, and I'll touch on how to actually apply mirroring. And then perhaps I will touch on again the sense of importance in another video, and then finally another one where it comes to, okay, how do I actually utilize both of these in a conversation effectively in order for me to take advantage of their influential results. So I'm going to try to utilize pain to actually illustrate this, right? So maybe I don't really need pain for now. So before I even go into introducing the concepts through pain and everything to illustrate, you can say that to utilize mirroring sense of importance, you are working on the principle of likability. The way I see it is that if you want to influence behavior, you can either utilize power, which is, okay, I'm going to dominate you, I'm going to overpower you, I'm going to demand that you do the things that I want. And of course, what results is that it leaves people it concludes with people liking us less. And the issue with that is that if somebody that we have quote unquote influence using power happens to have an opportunity to screw us over, they will very much likely choose to do so out of because one thing we breach their sense of autonomy, right? So we actually touch on something that is more on the feeling side, and you can say that, well, when it comes to feelings, so long as somebody feel like, okay, it is justified for me to actually harm this person back for a wrong that they did to me, they are going to do it. So this is if you are influencing them, or rather you are changing their behavior through the principles of power. Whereas on the flip side, the principle of influence is on the basis of likability. The idea is that the more that you like me, the more that you're much more likely to do things for me. So on a simple case of comparison, you can say that imagine if a stranger were to come up to you and then ask for $2. Or maybe like if $2 is negligible to you, then maybe you can increase this to $20, right? A random stranger just come up to you and say that like, can I have $20? Most of the time, likelihood, we are gonna say no. No, I don't think so. I don't want to give you $20. If you're a little bit more empathetic, you might even ask like, why? Then you can think of it as like the reason why you ask why is because you want to give this person an opportunity to give you a good reason for you to actually give them $20, right? But most of the time people are going to be like, nah, I'm not going to do it. But if we were to shift the context into what if it's your close friend? Of course, we're not talking in terms of like your acquaintance, we're talking in terms of your close friend, and your close friend or your best friend come up to you and say, hey dude, do you mind if I have $20? Again, it's very likely you're going to ask why. Like, why do you need $20? But there might be a possibility, or rather you can say that you're comparing the possibility of stranger versus your close friend. You are much more likely to actually hand out the $20 to your close friend without thinking about it. So you're going to be like, yeah, sure man, here you go. And the reason why this falls under likability, you can say that the more that you like somebody, the more that you are willing to give up resources for their benefit, as if you're going to give resources to yourself. So for human being, we accumulate different resources, be it how you see it. Money is one of it, and success is one of it, and we spend these resources to benefit ourselves, right? So the idea is that I spend money to buy the things that I want, and I don't spend money to buy the things that other people want because their desires isn't in line with my desire. But the idea is that if I'm very close with somebody and I like somebody, I am likely to spend money for them to be happy, be it buy them a meal, buy them a gift, even though it costs me resources, but I would value their happiness and their desire as if to a certain extent it is my own desire. So of course you can say that personal desire is paramount, or rather higher than other people's desire, right? You are much more likely to purchase something that you really want, that is very expensive, that you feel like you can afford, compared to if you're buying the same thing for somebody else. Of course, we are not taking in consideration of people, the gift of giving, right? The satisfaction you feel like, oh, I benefited from somebody else. But this goes into personality theory, right? So what I'm trying to say is that this example alone is just to show that we are willing to do things and spend resources for people that we like. So therefore, this whole principle of why we should work on the principle of influence and likability is to take advantage. It sounds really crude when I put it in that way, right? Take advantage of this whole idea. So the basic of this comes down to mirroring. And you can say that for mirroring, when two people build rapport, which by the way, if you don't know what rapport is, rapport basically can be deemed as how do I actually define rapport? Rapport can be seen as how close you are or how much you vibe with somebody when you interact with them. So if you interact with somebody for the first time and you guys bond, you guys are able to get along really well, then you can say that to a certain extent, both of you tend to have a good rapport. Whereas the opposite of it is that, okay, you meet somebody for the first time and then you speak to them, but it's very crude. They say something that offended you, you say something that is offended them. Then you can say that because both of your value system are so different, therefore you guys are not in rapport, and likelihood what tends to happen is that you'll dislike them and they'll dislike you, right? Whereas the opposite of rapport is that your value system is kind of similar, right? If let's say I like one thing and then the other person likes the same thing, and then we're able to bond there, like, hey, for example, do you watch this drama, do you watch this show whatsoever, and the person, yeah, I watch the thing, and they like the same thing that I like, then you can say that, well, we're in rapport. And what tends to happen is that we would end up liking each other. So the idea is that naturally, right, when it comes to human being, you don't have to teach this to any human being. This is inbuilt in us. You can even see this in children. When children started to interact with other children, naturally, when two human beings or more interact with each other and are in rapport, what tends to happen is that they tend to mirror each other naturally. So you can say that mirroring encompasses a lot of things. Mirroring can encompass energy to a certain extent. So if, let's say, I'm somebody who is a little bit more, let's say, on the extreme end, I would say that I'm more energetic, right? I speak very fast, I'm very excitable, I tend to speak at a higher tonality, and I speak very fast, I'm more excited, and if I want to speak to somebody that is a little bit more mellow, who tends to be a little bit more chill, who not really that they take life slowly, but the idea is that their way of speaking, the pacing is a little bit slower, less excitable, they tend to be a little bit more monotone, right? They tend to speak more in monotone. If the excitable person and this lower energy person speak to each other, you can say that if they continue to speak to each other in the different styles, the very contrasting styles, right, it will be very tiresome for both of them. But if, so long as they have a common topic, let's say, for example, both of them says that, like, I like Game of Thrones. And then they started talking about the show. Oh, what's your favorite character? Hey, I like that as well. What's your favorite scene? Yada, yada, yada. What tends to happen is that the person with speaking at more monotonous tends to increase the rate that they're speaking to match the one that speaks faster. And the person that speaks faster and more excitable will likely tone down and started to speak a little bit slower. So you can say that if, let's say, this is the person who is monotonous and this person is of higher energy, then what tends to happen is that they will slowly try to match each other's energy. Then you can say that people who tends to be more empathetic, then what tends to do is that the empathetic person will tend to shift more to match the other person, right? But the idea is just naturally, if two person is to get along, they will have to shift their energy. Then you can say that if the monotonous person have to shift their energy so much to actually match the energy of the other person, then you can even say that the fact that they are not really contributing the same thing so that they can interact smoothly with each other is going to cause a little bit of disconnect when it comes to the rapport side. But the idea is that the thing that I share, most of it tends to be a little bit more on the additional information, good to know but not necessary for you to know right now. The only thing that you need to know when it comes to the rapport at this level is just that naturally when people start to be in rapport, they are going to match each other mirroring. So what we are trying to do when it comes to applying mirroring is that we are trying to emulate a natural phenomenon, so to speak. So you can say that if we genuinely are in rapport with somebody, then all these mirroring things are going to work automatically. But what we are trying to do is that we are trying to understand the process and we are trying to utilize it. To a certain extent, you can say that the reason why we built it so quickly is because subconsciously the person will recognize it as like, okay, I'm in deep rapport with this person. This is the pattern of if I were to meet somebody that we genuinely gel with, we genuinely bond with. And this is why this whole principle works, right? So, like what I mentioned, mirroring encompasses a lot of things. And to a certain extent, you can say that different aspects will take different time to learn, such as mirroring of energy. Because in order for me to mirror the other person's energy, I have to pay attention, right? By the way, a lot of this technique will only work if, one, you pay attention, you notice certain things, and you do the things in accordance. So you can say that the more that you have to pay attention, then the harder the techniques, right? So for example, if let's say I'm trying to read the personality type of the person so that I know what is important to them, I have to actually pay attention to the words and what they mean, etc. So it can get very, very complicated very quickly. And matching of energy is somewhere in between there, right? Where I need to take note of, okay, how fast this person speaks, then what type of tonality, are they more excitable, are they more monotonous? then I have to match it to a certain extent. And if I'm able to match it, they will instantly get more comfortable and they won't understand why they got more comfortable. And it's easier for me to speak to them that way. And of course, you can say other things such as language works as well, right? If let's say you are bilingual or you speak multiple language, the person that you're speaking with by nature speak more in a language, for example, Mandarin, and you're able to speak Mandarin, even to a certain extent, speaking and having the conversation in Mandarin will make the person feel more at ease. So again, these are all niche cases, right? You don't have to learn all these harder ones at this point. The only thing that you need to utilize right now when it comes to mirroring and sense of importance encompassing 70-80% of the influencing the process, you only need to learn basic mirroring, which is mirroring of words. So how mirroring of words work is this. For human being, when we interact with each other, we use words, but what happens is that in order for us to process words, by nature, we have to translate it into a feeling that we can pass into our subconscious. Be it this is a feeling process that values things whatsoever, right? Of course, this, if you want to actually know the theory of it, or rather how it actually works, I think it can get quite confusing because it can get very abstract, right? But the idea is just think of it this way. The human subconscious mind, which is a huge portion of our internal processes, which by the way, if you don't know what the subconscious mind is, right, you can think in terms of your consciousness, you sitting in front of the computer or sitting in front of the phone right now, listening to this for the first time, can to a certain extent said to be conscious, right? You're deciding what to do here and there, you're trying to process the thing. And your subconscious tends to be things that is done automatically, right? Such as breathing, how to brush your teeth, all these things. So a lot of our internal processes is actually decided by our subconscious. So when it comes to interacting, so this is where I'm going to start to utilize the painting, right? Now, when two person interact with each other, so this is person A, hello, and then this is person B. Okay, there are certain words or certain conversations that by nature is neutral. And we do not need to consult our feelings in order to answer them. What are some examples of this? One example of this potentially is, what's the time now? If I ask a stranger, what's the time right now? The person, all they need to do is, okay, look to the clock. Okay, now it's 8 p.m. Okay, cool. Now it's 8 p.m. They don't have to process anything. But there are certain questions. And by the way, if you want to be very influential, these are going to be the questions that you want to start asking people are questions that are emotionally linked. So you can say that there are words or conversation phrases in our human dictionary that by nature is going to have an emotional charge to it. And the reason why there's emotional charge is because it goes into our reptilian brain, right? So if I were to derail from it, you can think in terms of our mind. The most basic, fundamental, non-conscious processes is your reptilian brain. And your reptilian brain is only concerned of three things, right? It's only concerned of subsistence, survival, and procreation. And the reason why I always use these three words is because these three words are neutral. So I get them to understand the neutral feeling first before I actually use the words that most people use to describe these three words. And then when I say these three words, what tends to happen is that they'll realize that, oh, there's a little bit of feeling, there's a little bit of tingling internally, right? So if I were to rephrase, the three things that the reptilian brain is concerned about is, number one, eating, food, hunger. Number two, reproduction, sex. Number three, death, expiring, dying. So you can say that these three category of words, which is sustenance, procreation, and the survival, these are something that in itself is what the human animal values, right? So if let's say just to touch on very quickly, right? This is the reptilian brain, but beyond this is our animal brain. This is all our emotions, etc. Our emotions, our fear, whatsoever, and then only beyond that, that's our human brain, right? And then this is how we use logic and process. So generally, this is how internally a human mind actually works. So let's just like delete this for now. So going back to the example of these two person having a conversation, right? If one of them were to ask, okay, what's the time? Then the answer is very simple. However, if let's say the conversation right now, imagine if I were to ask you, let's say we are having a conversation right now, right? Me and you. And I ask you, I'm very curious about something. What is your greatest fear? Then how do you answer the question, right? The first instance of time is that you look to the time. But if you notice the question that I asked, and if somebody would ask this question to you, in order for you to out your feelings, right? You have to think, but what you're actually doing is not thinking, you are actually feeling, okay, what would cause me to feel fear? So in order for that to happen, right, so imagine this is you, okay, and you have the sentence of what is your biggest fear? What is your biggest fear? First of all, how human beings actually process information is this. This sentence is complex, right, in itself. And there's a lot of words. There is what, there is your biggest fear. In order for the human mind to actually understand and answer this question based on feelings, they have to convert all of this into the internal dictionary. Right? And you can say that different people have different dictionary. So if let's say I were to say sustenance, and another person would say sustenance, we might understand the two words differently. Although both of us can theoretically go into a dictionary and actually look it up and everything like this, right? Reading the definition of a dictionary also requires so many different words. There's like maybe a definition of word requires 10 other words, and it's depending on how I understand all these things. So you can already say that based on human understanding, we can understand words differently as well, and it can cause a lot of confusion. But generally, you just need to understand this process, right? Is that you take a very complex phrase, what is your biggest fear? You pass into your internal dictionary, and it will come out and translate all those complex words into a feeling. So just for visualization, right, you can say that these feelings can be described to be green in color, right? This is not in actual fact, how human being process, like, if I'm talking about fear, this is green, etc. It's just for visualization purpose. So we will take this green in color and we'll pass into our feelings. Okay, and then we'll actually try to feel. So you can say that the term "what is your biggest fear" can be described into a feeling, green in color passing into our feelings. And when we touch that feeling, okay, we try to understand, we try to conclude whatsoever what is our biggest fear. It turns out that our biggest fear, okay, is translated to the color red. But of course, the human mind I can't convey the color red to the other person, right? I have to still use words to tell this person what is my biggest fear. So I'll take red in color, I'll pass into the dictionary, which by the way, all this happens incredibly quickly, right? This can happen in a fraction of a second, etc. So human being, we don't have to think about this because all these processes are subconscious, right? Your conscious mind have no control over all of this. So you pass into your dictionary, and your dictionary would chunk out the words. The words that best describe what is your biggest fear turns out to be, I am afraid of heights. Okay, then what tends to happen is that, if let's say I were to take all of this away, for now. Okay, I am afraid of heights come out from my mouth to this person who asked me the question. At this junction, you can say that there is a lot of different ways to describe the fear of heights. You can say fear of heights is acrophobia. You can say fear of heights is, well, I'm afraid of heights. You can say fear of heights is I'm afraid of falling. There is so many different ways to describe I am afraid of heights. But as far as this person is concerned, the true feeling that he feels when it comes to linking to their deepest fear is the sentence, I am afraid of heights. So in a conversation, then of course naturally he answers the person, right? I am afraid of heights. So this is what happens whenever people tell us information, right? And once you understand this is the process that works, what I want you to do is that I want you to apply mirroring to bypass the natural processes of how human process the words, right? So imagine you're having a conversation right now. Now you're not the person being asked what is your greatest fear. You are the person who have heard the words, I am afraid of heights. This is what happens, right? Again, whenever human beings, we hear a certain phrase, let's say I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid of heights is a very complicated string of words, right? First of all, there's a feeling words which is afraid. So I must first understand what is afraid, right? The degree of fear, right? Afraid can be traumatic level of fear, can be like, hey, you're kind of whatever. And heights, what does heights actually mean to me? What is like off and everything? So I'm trying to process all these things, right? Again, what tends to happen is that all this process into my dictionary. So this is my dictionary, different from this person's dictionary, right? My dictionary. And it turns out that the feeling translated from my understanding of I am afraid of heights, okay, which if I'm not wrong, the fear of heights that this person said previously was red in color, right? Turns out that the color I got was blue in color. So me wanting to understand what this person says will pass my color, blue in color, back into my dictionary to come out to the best way to describe blue in color. And it turns out that the best way for me to describe blue in color is I am acrophobic. I'm acrophobic. So me, now that I understand, okay, wow, I understood that like this, I am acrophobic. So I am going to phrase this and answer back to this person. Oh, so you're acrophobic. This is, in this junction, right, before I even talk about how this other person will process the words that you have just said right now, there's one junction that I want to highlight. When it comes to mirroring the words, right, here's the few things you notice. The feeling that this person felt, and the feeling that you felt, fundamentally is different. And the reason why it's different is because our dictionary is different. The translator that we use is different because I understand the world and I form my dictionary through my life experiences. My life experiences is not going to be fully similar to the other person. Even if our life experience is the same, our personality is different, right? So I will end up having a dictionary that is different. And you can say that in order for two person to truly bond, so let's say right now what we're saying is that this a best friend situation, right? So let's say these two person are best friends. What tends to happen is that they tend to have more similar colors. So for example, if let's say I would describe like, oh, I really, really, really like this thing, then the feeling that conveys this message is this, right? And then this is I like X. And this person, your best friend, would translate I like X as maybe this in color. It's never going to be similar, but it can be very, very similar. It will never be 100% the same, but they can be similar. And the idea is that for best friends, you can say that their maps tends to be similar. Genuine best friends that are friends without thinking about it, their maps tends to be very similar. And therefore, they find it easy to talk to each other. Because when I talk, you understand. You don't have to process anything, right? So this is what tends to happen when it comes to people who genuinely, by nature, are best friends. So if you have a childhood friend, that's likelihood what happened. Or a lot of things can also be a fluke. It can be accidental, but it really doesn't matter right now. So, and the idea is you can also say that I'll touch on this point after I were to touch on how this person is going to respond, right? So I'll save the point that I wanted to say for 5 minutes into the future. So we just continue the illustration right now. So right now what happened is that this person or rather like person B, right? Because I don't want to say you and then now imagine this, now imagine this. But as much as possible, this helps when you put yourself into person A and person B's shoes. So person B have now used the words, oh, so you are acrophobic, to person A. And you can say that this, to a certain extent, can be said to be rephrasing. I'm rephrasing what this person said. This is what happens internally when it comes to person A hearing the words, I am acrophobic. Person A will take this complex sentence, I am acrophobic, based on his understanding of all these words, again going into his dictionary and passing out a color. So in this case, you can say that, okay, maybe the color being passed out is purple. So in order for person A to understand whether or not person B have actually heard what he said, this is what tends to happen. So now, I am acrophobic gave me the color purple. What I said to the other person was the color red. And internally, person A will compare. Is purple equals to color red? No, it is not. Or you can say that, well, it kind of is, but it is not really. Or, well, you can sort of say it that way, I guess. But the idea is, this is not 100% same as this. Many times, or quite often, people will actually say that, like, no, this is not what I actually mean. What I mean was this. So that's why you have those kind of conversation, right? You said that, like, oh, is it like you mean it this way? They're like, no, I actually mean it this way. Not to say that rephrasing is not useful. Rephrasing is useful when it comes to trying to really genuinely understand somebody's point, right? But the idea is that when you rephrase certain things, such as when someone tells you something extremely simple, such as like, oh, my heights, what I'm afraid of is I'm afraid of heights. And you say something like, oh, so you're acrophobic. This is the results of it, right? Which is the person will compare, is I am afraid of heights and I am acrophobic the exact same thing? No, it is not the exact same thing. Best benefit of doubt I can give you is that they are similar, but they are not 100% the same. And you can ask yourself the question right now, well, if they are not 100% the same, what is the thing that will make it so that this person will get red? Guess what is the string of words that you can use to this person to get them to generate the color red using their dictionary? It's simple. The string of words, or you can say that the only string of words, or one of the few possible string of words, is the sentence word for word, I am afraid of heights. Right? You don't have to go like, oh, so you're acrophobic. You don't have to rephrase anything. All you need to do is just throw back exactly the same words as them, right? They say that I'm afraid of heights. Oh, so you're afraid of heights? When you use, oh, so you're afraid of heights, what do you think tends to happen if the person were to translate? The person will exactly get red in color, right? And if this person got red in color, they're going to compare. Is red the same as red? Yes, red is same as red. Therefore, person B have understood me. And person A bonds with person B, right? The illusion that is being created for person A is that using I am afraid of heights, using person B's dictionary, person B got red in color. But based on what we saw, that's not the case, right? Person B actually got blue in color. But the idea is that if person B, now we're talking in terms of mirroring, right? If you want to get the best possible results, what you do is that you ignore all the internal, how you process the different words. You can use this for your own information, right? But you can ignore them if you want to. You ignore all these things, right? I am afraid of heights is equal to blue in color. You don't even need to understand the feeling. All you need to do is, oh, I'm afraid of heights. Go into your mind, do what's those roundabout, right? So let's say this is a roundabout, and out from your mouth should be exactly these words: I am afraid of heights. To the other person. That's all you have to do. You don't have to do any sort of internal processes, right? And then this person would naturally feel like you have heard exactly what they said. And you can say that to a certain extent, because the words that I used earlier on was, if this person were to translate the string of words, I am afraid of heights, they are going to get read is a factual statement, but that's not exactly what tends to happen. So let me just try to clean up as much as I can, right? I know that this is like very messy. Maybe the whole idea is that all I need to do is just delete everything and then just start all over again, right? So person A, person B, and then over here is let me see, why can't I type over here? Oh, transparent. I screw some. I am, okay, some reason I am afraid of heights. Oh, I understand what's the thing. That's why they say transparent or opaque. Okay, I don't use paint very often. So when I use back the words that this person gave me, I am afraid of heights. In actual fact, this doesn't get processed at all. It doesn't go into their dictionary. Okay, I am afraid of heights being this person's own words is as if it's a resident going back home. So imagine if, let's say, you live in an apartment where there's a security guard, right? If a stranger were to come in, then the security guard will have to do all the checking. Okay, what are you? Are you a visitor? Okay, who are you visiting? Everything, then take stock and everything, right? When you use the person's own words, it's as if a resident just came home. The security guard don't have to do any sort of checking whatsoever. It's just like, hey, here you go, man. Just bypass everything. It bypasses our conscious mind. And straight away, this I am afraid of heights is instantly converted into a feeling. So using the illustration of the security guard, right, you can think of it this way. The security guard is going to take some time to process all those things. Whereas if you are a resident, you don't have to process it at all. Instantly, you get the feeling. The fact that the person don't have to process the words that just came out of your mouth makes it feel as though you two are very close. Because you can say that you can possibly use the previous sentence, which I'm acrophobic. This person will have to first understand, okay, what is acrophobic? Okay, so because of all of this, acrophobic is purple in color. Although all this process is in a fraction of a second, the fact that the fraction of a second existed creates a little bit of a disconnect that, okay, I'm not that similar with this person. But if you use the person's own words back, the feeling is instant, the understanding is instantaneous, and because of that, they would feel like, wow, it's so easy to talk to this person, it's so smooth, right? There is no internal clutter and everything like that, right? It is seamless. So you can say that to a certain extent, the more mirroring that you use, you put the person in a very hypnotic type of conversation style, because this person don't have to process a lot of things. All they are doing is just getting the good feelings, right? Because you can say that there is nothing more flattering when it comes to getting attention from another person. Of course, now I'm touching a little bit on sense of importance, right? But the whole idea of human being is that we put value on attention, which is why little children are trying to bug their parents for attention, right? That's why, like, problematic child, or rather you can say that, like, children are always constantly trying to get attention from adults. It's because us as human beings, we value attention. To a certain extent, we are willing to spend money for attention, right? You look to the internet, there are going to be people who have parasocial relationship with content creator. The content creator don't know them in real life, but the whole idea is that they form this bond and they feel like, okay, if I give money to this content creator, the content creator is going to recognize me and everything like this, right? So the whole idea is that I want attention from this person and I'm willing to pay actual money for the attention to this person. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? This is not a critique on whether or not that is a moral or immoral thing. I'm just stating it as a matter of facts. So the whole idea is this. Well, if now we understood, so probably I don't really need the whiteboard anymore. So if the whole idea is that by giving the words of the person back to them as it is so effective, why is it that us human being still wants to paraphrase the words? And by the way, this is the point that I said that, like, I'll touch on 5 minutes later, right? It's exactly this point, because I need you to understand to a certain extent how different it is, right, when it comes to paraphrasing versus giving the person back their own words. when it comes to paraphrasing, you can say that the reason why us human beings have a tendency to paraphrase, if I give benefit of the doubt, I would say that you're trying to understand the other person. So you're trying to see if like, okay, is the idea the same as this, because you're trying to match with your own map. If I give benefit of the doubt, most of the time, in my opinion, because human beings tends to be more emotional, even if you're a very logical person, right? Very logical person, the first thing that we have to realize is that we have to realize that we are extremely susceptible to emotions. And until you understand that you are susceptible to emotion and influence from the emotion side, you leave yourself extremely vulnerable to manipulation. But that's a whole matter altogether, right? The idea is that the reason why we paraphrase is because we have such a high value of ourselves that we think that, oh, this is what you said. What you said can be translated so much better. I understood what you meant, and I'm able to understand it so much better that you're able to understand it, that I'm able to give you the words that is able to describe this feeling of yours more accurate than any words that you can choose. Therefore, we paraphrase. Therefore, I say that, oh, so you're acrophobic. The whole idea is an ego stroke for me, right? The whole idea is that like, oh, I understood you so well. You can say that to a certain extent in a very innocent way of thinking about it. You can also see it from a frame of caring. I cared for you so much that I took extra attention to try to understand what you meant. So therefore, I paraphrase it to you. No matter how you see it, I always see this as objectively is inefficient. Just give the person's words back to them, because the whole idea is that the way that I see it, the person is able to understand what they mean much more than what I can potentially understand. And this is with me having knowledge of like personalities and body language, right? I still work on the principle of like they are able to describe all these feelings more accurately than I can. So the whole idea is that, of course, I will have to wrap up this quite quickly because this is going to 42 minutes. The idea is always use the person's words. There's no point trying to paraphrase all these things. So long as you mirror them, you're going to get the best results, right? And I'm pretty sure that I can't remember one exact point that I need to say at this moment. But in any case, that's the thing that I can think of off the top of my head. In the event that the last point that doesn't come to me when I do the closing. But generally this is mirroring. So maybe I'll end off over here. If I were to record a point, then of course these are something that I'll touch upon when it comes to the next video, right? Which is going to be the sense of importance. Because mirroring works extremely well with sense of importance. And the one last thing for you to understand, right, is that this technique alone is extremely simple. Of course, you can say that I'm not touching into how to actually use it into a conversation yet, right? But even right now, knowing all of this, you can actually start to apply your mirroring already. Just mirroring alone, and just notice that it gives you a lot of results by itself, which is why I say mirroring and sense of importance are two techniques that have the lowest they are min-max in the basis of the least effort and least understanding you need to know versus the results that you want to get. So in terms of, if let's say we think in terms of a game, these are the fastest way for you to be overpowered, right? You just start using this, then of course all the other things start to be like integrity for you to actually do a little bit of a progression. But generally, one last thing is that, of course, I'll rephrase and I will re-emphasize this again when it comes to utilizing this in a conversation, is that you do not have to be afraid of utilizing mirroring. Because one of the fear that people tend to have is that, wouldn't people notice that I'm using their own words? The answer is no. Because remember, when you use their own words back to them, it bypasses their conscious mind. Most of the time, and I have been using mirroring and sense of importance for a very long time now, majority of the time, people won't notice that I'm utilizing their own words. Because one thing is that you can also think in terms of lie detection and everything like this, is the difficulty of body language to a certain extent is that we tend not to want to think in terms of why this person is lying to me. So the whole idea is that if I'm really bonding with this person, right, why do I want to doubt and think in terms of like, hey, maybe this person is actually not that close, because it's so difficult to actually find somebody that is similar to us in terms of value already. So in any case, this is where I'm going to end off. If there's any confusion, there's parts that you don't understand, then do feel free to let me know. Then I'll of course address all of this, right? In any case, then I will look forward to seeing you on the next one, where I'll be touching on the sense of importance. All right, bye.